Welcome to the GTI Tours Podcast. Join us as we go behind the scenes and discuss with trip leaders, guides, biblical scholars, and more to bring the land and the lessons of the Bible to life. Hello and welcome to the GTI Tours Podcast. My name is Rich and I'm going to be your host today as we dive into the land and the lessons of the Bible. And I'm excited because we just had a group get back from going to Israel. And I thought, you know what? If we're going to do a podcast, we might as well do one with the man himself, Tommy Swindol, who just got back from leading his group, the Donaldson Fellowship, over to Israel. These guys are out of Tennessee. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about who he is and what the church is all about. But, you know, I thought a firsthand account from someone who's been there and walked the land, who's had a chance to eat the falafel, who's had a chance to be in the Sea of Galilee, who has just been there, get a chance to share with us. So, Tommy, thanks for taking the time and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother. It warms my heart that all that you just said is so true. And the falafel was awesome.
The falafel is always good. And Tommy is taking the time. He's pulled off wherever he's at, and he's sitting in a coffee shop, as I would do as well, to get himself some coffee and to jump on a podcast with us. So I am grateful for your time. Tommy, why don't you share just a little bit about yourself, your ministry, about your group, about this trip you guys just did?
Yeah. So I'm a pastor in Nashville, Tennessee. And I've been out here for 14 years, and we've begun to just take recurring trips with GTI to various biblical places on the planet so that we can put more and more people's boots on the ground, that they might hear the voice of the Lord and respond to him the way he's called them to. And so these trips are fantastic. And I've continued to ask the Lord, if you would allow me to lead these trips the rest of my life, I would sure love that. Whatever your will is what I want. But they're that impactful, not only to me, but I think when you see people's lives just kind of come to life out there, and they just, I don't know, their eyes light up when they see some places, faith building places, as they get lessons. It's awesome. So anyway, just blessed to be a part of it.
So overall, let's just talk about your trip. You can tell us a little bit about how the trip was and a little bit of the makeup of your group. Who'd you take? Who all went? What was it like?
Yeah, so we had a few, 30, 31, 32 people from 9 years old to 70 and everywhere in between. So families, Spanish speakers, English speakers, people from within our church, people like ministry leaders and friends outside of our church. So it was eclectic, my friends, in the best way. Most of them, no, all of them have anticipated going to Israel at some point, but have never been. And that's the first time for me to lead a trip where literally not one other person has ever been to the place that we're going. And so to see them see these places for the first time, it was really awesome. So very eclectic. Everyone did a great job. They stayed healthy. They drank water when we told them to drink water. They loved the food. They could have eaten as much or more falafel for sure. Yeah. So the trip itself, the team, awesome. They did a great job.
Yeah, I was really impressed because as I looked at the makeup of your group, you had young kids, you had older people, you had families, you had husband and wife combos. You had a whole bunch of different people. And I know that leading up to this, there was a lot of people who are probably telling you or them that they shouldn't go. They're concerned because they were watching the news and they were looking at what's there. So what was the feeling of your group leading up to the tour? Because as we all know, you went there as things were kind of like ramping up a little bit again with Iran and with some of the different things that were happening with trying to call together a truce and all these different things were happening.
Yeah, it's all understandable, isn't it? Like when friends and family are going, "Hey, are you guys sure? Are you sure?" I was never, I didn't feel unsupported. Our team members didn't feel unsupported. It was just their loved ones are just they're listening to news and wondering what is actually true, boots on the ground. And so our team, holistically, their attitudes were so great across the board that really their only concern was, I really want this trip to happen. We feel led to take this trip. We feel like God's in it. We're trying to be appropriate. We're trying to be safe. We're trying to do our due diligence. What's plan B? What's plan C if something were to happen? But God, would you just let this trip happen? And we trust you and your will, but we really hope it will happen. That was the consensus across the board. And the fact that it did happen, oh, man, Rich, it's like the trip that on paper shouldn't have happened that did. And it was, out of the 10 times I've been to Israel, it was just the best trip. And I can't thank God enough for it.
Let's ask the question that everyone is going to be asking, or they're thinking in their head is, did you feel safe? Did the group feel safe?
Yeah, 100% of the time, we 100% felt safe. People on our team, no one, remember, the youngest to the oldest, none of them having been there before, all the things that was coming out in the news that had ramped up. No one ever felt unsafe. And more importantly, no one was unsafe. The guide took good care of us. GTI, especially with Rich, you put up with a lot of phone calls from me beforehand just to make sure I was giving the most accurate information I could to our team. I wasn't worried. I just wanted to, I wanted to represent what you knew more than what I thought. And so our team appreciated that. And we were safe the entire time. The only concern we ever had, honestly, was what's the audible that we need to call today? Because you're gonna have audibles all the time. But what sites might we not get to see because it's not going to work out on this particular day? But even that, we missed minimal sites, and our guide worked with us in such an incredible way that we pulled it all off. And it was just of the Lord, man. It really was.
Yeah, as I sit and talk with leaders and when I sit and talk with people on the phone, often I'm not worried about the safety of people's physical safety out of any, or like there's things that can just happen on a trip, but I'm not worried about it. And people go, "You're not worried about it?" And I go, "No, that's because Israel has figured out how to take care of all these things. Like it's something that people forget. These guys live with this on a daily basis, and so they've figured it out. What I'm more worried about is, will it interrupt a trip in such a way that you do not get to do the things that you had planned to do? Because that would be a bummer to go all the way over to Israel and then not get to experience the trip that leaders have built because they want people to experience it a certain way. And that's what you and I were constantly talking about was, will we be able to run the trip that you as a leader feel is a trip that needs to be ran? And I was
Yeah.
excited to see you do it. You
Yeah.
ran a great trip.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, honestly, I mean, Gerald checking in, you checking in, all the staff at GTI, everyone's like prayerful. I was getting texts from GTI just saying, "Hey, we're just excited and we're prayerful for your trip." And I thought, she doesn't have to text me that. He doesn't have to say that. But I did just feel like we're all doing this. And some of us are boots on the ground. But it's all us. We are all doing this trip. So you feel that on these trips that you're becoming more and more like family, and that's kind of part of the experience, I think.
What I always find interesting is that the reality of what's on TV is not the reality of what's ever on the ground, ever. Like it's never been like that. And I've even found this myself. Like I'll be on a trip and then I'll get a call from someone in the States going, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Okay, from what?" They're calling me and they're telling me something that I didn't even know happened. And I'm in the place where it supposedly happened or whatever. So it's just really interesting in trying to give the best information possible to make the best decisions, what we do. And the reality is that between our ground operations, between GTI, between like Tommy and his group, like everybody, the safety is the most important part of everything. And so everyone's going out of their way to make sure everyone's good. And so you end up being safer than you could even imagine, even to the point sometimes where you're like, I feel like this is too much. Like we're good. I've
Yeah.
got enough water. I've got enough
Yeah.
food.
We are very, very safe.
Yeah, exactly. Let's like spin it a little bit more now then.
Mhm.
What were the sites like then? Like you're there in a time when people are telling you that maybe you shouldn't go there. What was it like?
Two things come to mind. And remember, 10th time I've been there. So I'm familiar. It's been 3 years since I've been. So I'm so excited to be back in the Holy Land in this place and to see these sites, some that I'm more familiar with than others. But every place we went, everyone is so excited to have us, not just for tourism. I know that's part of it. And that's valid. But there's another part of it that I would hear even before we arrived, even before we left the States, that was consistent all the way through, where everyone's saying, "We want Christians to come and explore our land. We think this is good. And we love that you're going, or we love that you're here." So every site had that kind of vibe. And which we've always been, it's always been kind. It's always been generous. but this was exceptional. And for, all of the good and discouraging reasons too, we were like, I mean, we had the sights to ourselves. I say discouraging just because you want to see more groups go because, oh, it's just so impactful. So we began to pray, Lord, let this group be one of the first groups back that now begins to just open up a dam where a bunch of groups go, because not only did we feel safe the whole time, but the sites were beautiful, wide open for us. No crowds, no noise, no. It was just welcoming environments, and we just had these places to ourselves. Which I don't know if that will ever be true again. And, but our team did not know how blessed they were to have these sites to themselves.
Amazing. And again, like right now going into the land, you're getting to have an experience that people typically wish they could have. You and I have talked about this, Tommy, of to go to Capernaum and to roll in and there'd be like 10, 15 buses, you'd call it a good day.
Right.
To go in and there'd be like no other buses,
Zero, Rich. Zero.
unheard of.
Right. It was, and that's what I mean by discouraging, in that you're like, Lord, this is like, let more trips happen, because it's so worth time. It's so worth the effort. And it was so safe and so generous. So it was something that our team showed up, and they don't even notice the parking lot. I'm just seeing all the emptiness there and taking pictures of it and sending it to friends who lead trips like this. Like, can you believe that? But yeah, it was wonderful. I just can't say enough good. The Lord did so much, not only in me, but in our group, that they're still texting each other. I mean, today, literally before this phone call, I'm seeing them texting each other. You remember when we learned this? And I was studying this in the scriptures, and I learned this, and I'm praying for you about that thing that you shared with me on that mountain. And I'm like, look, of course, God, you would. This is a part of the trip that is going to stick with them forever. So it was great.
Yeah. And again, we're excited with it. We've got so many more trips coming up going to over to Israel. I'm actually getting ready to hop on a plane in a week. And so I get the chance to go back over. I'm going to be
Good.
hanging out with our teams over there and really just praying to the Lord that like groups will continue to materialize and go, because the experience of what you get right now is something that it's not normal. And so you're
Right.
getting the place to yourself. And it really reminds me of the times when we started going back after COVID, where we have the entire
Mhm.
place to ourselves, and it's an amazing experience.
Exactly. I'm glad you get to go, and I hope a ton more groups go, because it is well worth their time to do it.
Let's talk for a second about what was a significant moment for your group in Israel, because you got your group there, and as a pastor, this is what you've been hoping, get them there. You're
Yeah.
teaching God's word. You're in the greatest classroom that could ever exist. What was it? What was a moment that was significant for the group?
Can't remember where I heard this, but it was a fictional conversation between a rabbi and a student, that the rabbi said, everyone thinks that if they say, where do I go to meet God, that I'm going to tell you the synagogue, but I would actually tell you the wilderness. And with that quote on my mind, related to some of the things that I've just learned in the wilderness in Israel, like to walk those rocky ancient paths where you're looking at a landscape that is itself ancient. Much of modern cities are, built on civilizations, right? And it's part of it, and it has its own story, and it's tremendous. But when you look at a natural landscape that is vast and that resembles something that a spiritual forefather would have seen, you think, God, it really does make sense to take people into a wilderness to see this, and then to build a storyline that, as they only see vast ground and they feel heat and they feel all the things, and that's where they get these spiritual lessons. There's something about that sticks with them. And when you add to it, then you begin to drop a site that we would visit called En Gedi, and all of a sudden there's something lush about this place that should not be, because it's in this vast ground. But why is there so much green here? And then you begin to teach about living water. You begin to talk about what does it mean to actually drink living water? What did Jesus mean when he taught these types of lessons? Those visuals, boots on the ground, changes the way you receive it. And I think the Lord speaks in a pretty unique way, that even when you're walking out of those sites, people can't help but just pair up or group up and say, let me talk to you about what the Lord's doing in my life here. Let me talk to you about when I struggled with this. So I think about those types of settings and those types of biblical lessons about wilderness being the primary place that the Lord's going to speak, and what it means when you actually begin to interact then with water it changes your perspective.
And the heat of when you were there, you were there in a nice
Yeah.
warm
Yes.
time to where
Yes.
water is extremely meaningful. Friends,
Exactly.
if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you've heard me say this many and many a times, is that I am amazed that when I ask this question, Tommy's not alone in what he just said. People over people continue to say that the most enriching, the place where God met them was in the wilderness. And I think there's just something to it. And that's why we started running an all wilderness trip. So if you're ever want to get into the desert teachings of all desert, all wilderness teachings, check out our Saudi Arabia trip, because that completely takes place all in the desert. 8 days of just being in the desert doing the wilderness teachings. It's an amazing place.
Rich, last year when we went to Turkey, the group that led there, on the trip, one particular sweetheart of a lady from our church stopped mid hike and she just turned around weeping and she goes, I need to be baptized.
Whoa.
And she just began to unpack her story and how she'd come from a past of addiction. And she said, my family's like, I can't believe you're taking this trip. And she said, I just think the Lord wants me to take this trip. But it was mid hike on a random ancient trail that was not random. It was like the Lord just put this trail for her, and she was baptized that day. And everyone still, I mean, now she's in our church planting residency. Now she's leading out in our church. But I think I remember that ancient trail in Turkey when we're talking seven churches of Revelation. So again, just GTI trips that they're excuses for us to have boots on the ground in particular places where the scriptures come alive and where the Lord speaks to us in a special way. So anyway, I know you have tons of those stories, but I'm grateful for the ones that I've gotten to see as well.
I mean, look at me, I'm smiling. I love it because that's what it's all about. GTI is all about coming alongside the church and coming alongside guys like you to be able to bring your people, to be able to set them up to come on a trip that hopefully brings their Bible alive. And then it comes home and sets them up for the next part of discipleship, which is being a part of the church and the continuing on in that process of becoming more like Christ. And the fact that we get a chance to go walk in these places, we call it the fifth gospel. You got Matthew,
Yes.
Mark, Luke, and John in the lands of the Bible, and a chance to walk the land with Bible in hand is just, there's something about it. And you don't have to go to the Bible lands to be able to encounter God. And so we consider it really a privilege in these moments when we get to go. God speaks to us wherever we're at, but we're excited that we have these opportunities to be able to stand in these places. And I can't wait to continue to hear the stories of how your group develops from this time together and the things that they end up doing.
Me either, bro. Me either. It's been beautiful so far.
Well, any final thoughts that you have for our podcast community that's out there, if they're listening in? This is, again, a unique podcast because we're highlighting a person who
Yeah.
just got back. But I figured
Yeah.
there's no better podcast to do than to highlight someone who's just been there. So
Yeah. It's because I know your podcast listeners surely have an affection for the lands of the Bible, or they probably wouldn't be subscribing to this, but or at least be inquisitive. Maybe they've never taken a trip and they're just trying to like pan that out. I would say, as someone who just came back from Israel at a time when a lot of the world was saying some pretty dramatic things about that land that we did not experience in that way, that the news was maybe portraying that in fullness. Feeling fully safe on that trip, fully supported by not only the GTI crew back in the States, but also our guides and drivers. Just incredible. I would say, when will you go? Like, when will you go ahead and schedule that? Because I think that's going to be a tremendous blessing to you and maybe a friend or family member to bring with you. It's changed my life. I've just continuously asked the Lord, would you let it be the recurring trip of my life to take these types of trips? And like you said, it's not a necessity to grow closer to the Lord, and God speaks to us anywhere we are, but it definitely helps and enhances his voice in my ear. And that's only good news for me. So I hope that you get a chance to go with GTI at some point along the way. It'll be a blessing too.
if you're checking out this podcast, we'll also include in the notes a link to the blog that they did while they were on the trip. So it shows their day, each day, the places they went, the things that they saw. So you can check that out. There are also some other links in there too if you want to check out other trips that GTI has going. So Tommy, I just appreciate you taking the time, pulling off to a coffee shop to chat with us, hop on the podcast. And I hope that you and I can travel together soon one of these days. I think that'd be fun.
Yes. Rich, man, I'm so excited to talk to you, man. I would talk to you anytime. You've been a joy and a blessing to our team. Really, truly. Like at moments when I'm going, what about? You're answering all those questions, and you and the whole team, just awesome, man. Yeah, praise God for you.
That's why we're here. We love getting to do it. So, all right, friends, thanks for joining us on this podcast. And until the next podcast, take care. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. For more information on upcoming GTI study tours, please find us on the web at www.gtitours.org.